tell me this demonstration is much, much bigger than they expected.
Demonstration against the imposition of inheritance tax on farms.
Current headline on Sky News is Jeremy Clarkson arrives. That is it.
The tax that could star Britain, why farmers are at war with Westminster. Before we dive into what might be the most catastrophic policy decision of this government, hit that subscribe button. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't being covered properly by mainstream media, and UK Connors is here to give you the unfiltered truth about British politics. Ring that notification bell, because if you think this is just about farmers, you're about to learn why this affects every single person watching this video. King Charles must be watching all this unfold with particular concern. After all, the monarch who has championed organic farming and environmental stewardship throughout his life now presides over a nation where his government is systematically dismantling the very industry he has spent decades supporting. The irony is almost too perfect, isn't it? A king who talks to his plants watching a prime minister who apparently doesn't talk to his farmers. Sir Keir Starmer is facing what might go down as a defining crisis of his premiership, and it's not coming from the opposition benches or the media. It's coming from the people who literally feed this nation. Hundreds of farmers descended on Liverpool during Labour's conference, and they weren't there for a friendly chat over tea and biscuits. They were there because they believe this government is trying to destroy them. Let's talk about what's actually happening here, because the devil is absolutely in the details. Last year's budget included a bombshell that sent shockwaves through rural Britain. The government decided to restrict the 100% inheritance tax relief for farms to just the first £1 million of combined agricultural and business property. Now, if you're sitting in a city flat thinking £1 million sounds like a lot, let me educate you on something crucial. In farming, £1 million is nothing. A single decent-sized farm with its land, equipment, livestock and infrastructure can easily be worth several £1 million, and that doesn't mean the farmer is rich. It means they own assets that produce food. Here's where it gets absolutely maddening. These farms aren't sitting on piles of cash. They are asset-rich but cash-poor. When a farmer dies and their children inherit, they'll now face a tax bill that could run into hundreds of thousands of pounds. How do you pay that? You can't exactly sell off a field or two without destroying the viability of the entire operation. So what happens? Families who have farmed the same land for generations are forced to sell up entirely. The land gets bought by corporate interests or property developers, and another family farm disappears forever. Gareth Wyn-Jones, a celebrity farmer from North Wales who's become something of a folk hero in this battle, didn't mince his words when he spoke to the Daily Express. He called Starmer the most unlike prime minister ever and said Labour's ratings are dropping like a stone. But more importantly, he issued a warning that should chill everyone watching this video. He told the Prime Minister to meet with farmers and address their problems before this nation goes hungry. Before this nation goes hungry. Let that sink in for a moment. And is not being hyperbolic. Food inflation is already going through the roof. Farmers are the foundation of our food security, and we're treating them like they are some sort of privileged elite that needs to be taken down a peg. It's absolutely backwards. Wyn-Jones put it perfectly when he said you're not going to get food without farmers. It's such a simple statement, but apparently it needs to be said because this government seems to have forgotten it entirely. Now let's talk about the human cost of this policy, because that's what really matters here. Spencer Campbell is a 20-year-old farmer from Stowmarket in Suffolk. This young man is putting in 100-hour weeks and is not doing it to get rich. He's doing it because nothing makes him more proud than knowing he feeds the nation every day. That's the kind of work ethic and dedication we should be celebrating, not punishing. But Spencer is terrified about his future. He's already seen the damage this autumn. They are battening down the hatches, preparing for what they see as an existential threat. When a 20-year-old who dreams of building up a farming business looks at the current situation and calls it awful, that should be a wake-up call. This isn't just about current farmers. This is about whether Britain will have farmers in the next generation. Who's going to take on the burden of feeding this nation when the government makes it financially impossible to pass farms from parent to child? The protest in Liverpool wasn't just angry farmers waving placards. It was organized by Farmers to Action, and they came prepared. Trailers covered with messages from farmers around the country, making it clear this isn't some fringe movement. This is mainstream rural Britain saying enough is enough. Alan Hughes, a fourth-generation farmer representing the campaign group, laid it out plainly. It's impossible at the moment to make a living and pay this tax. Impossible. Not difficult, not challenging. Impossible. And these aren't people who give up easily. Hughes made it clear they're going to continue lobbying, protesting, and building pressure until this government starts to listen. The question is, will Labour listen before it's too late? Or are they so ideologically committed to this policy that they'd rather let British agriculture collapse than admit they got it wrong? Now, here's where it gets really interesting from a political perspective. Labour has defended this policy by claiming that most estates claiming agricultural and business property reliefs will be unaffected. A government spokesperson trotted out statistics saying that 40% of agricultural property relief, worth £219 million, went to just 117 estates. They are trying to paint this as targeting the super-rich, the landed gentry who don't really farm anyway. But farmers aren't buying it, and for good reason. The threshold is far too low to distinguish between genuine family farms and wealthy landowners using agricultural property as a tax dodge. It's a blunt instrument being used where surgical precision is required. The government is essentially saying, trust us, most of you will be fine. But farmers can do maths. They can look at land values and inheritance tax rates and work out that many of them are absolutely not going to be fine. Labour also points to the £11.8 billion they are providing for sustainable farming and the appointment of former NFU President Baroness Minette Batters to recommend reforms to boost farmers' profits. That's all well and good, but it rather misses the point. You can't boost profits with one hand while threatening the very existence of family farms with the other. It's like giving someone a pay rise while simultaneously burning down their house and expecting them to be grateful for the pay rise. The fundamental disconnect here is staggering. Labour keeps talking about food security and the important role farmers play, while simultaneously implementing a policy that undermines both. They say farming plays a central role in their mission to kickstart economic growth. But how exactly does forcing farms to break up or so contribute to economic growth? How does destroying generational businesses that have weathered world wars, recessions, and pandemics help anyone except property developers? This is where we need to talk about what's really at stake. Britain imports about half its food. That's a shocking statistic when you think about it. We're an island nation that can't feed itself. Now imagine what happens when more family farms collapse. That percentage goes up. We become more dependent on international supply chains, more vulnerable to global shocks, more at the mercy of other countries' agricultural policies. Remember what happened during the pandemic when supply chains got disrupted? Remember the empty shelves? Now imagine that becoming the norm because we destroyed our domestic food production capability. And let's be brutally honest about something the government doesn't want to discuss. When family farms sell up, who buys the land? Often it's not other farmers. It's investors, corporations, or wealthy individuals looking for tax advantages or lifestyle properties. The land might stay technically agricultural, but the knowledge, the expertise, the generations of understanding that specific piece of land gets lost forever. You can't replace that. A corporate farm manager with an MBA is not the same as a family that's worked the same field for a century and knows every quirk of the soil and climate. There's also a class dimension to this that's absolutely dripping with irony. Labour, the party that's supposed to represent working people, is implementing a policy that will primarily harm working farmers while potentially benefiting wealthy investors who can afford sophisticated tax planning. The small to medium family farms are the ones getting crushed. The really big operations often have corporate structures that can handle this. The mega wealthy have accountants who will find ways around it. It's the middle being hollowed out, which seems to be Labour's specialty these days. Gareth Wynne-Jones called Starmer the most unlike Prime Minister ever. Now, that's obviously subjective and impossible to measure definitively, but the sentiment tells you something important. There's a visceral anger building in rural Britain that Labour seemed completely blind to. These communities have felt ignored and looked down upon by urban politicians for years. This inheritance tax change feels like confirmation that Westminster genuinely doesn't care if they survive or not. Gareth Wynne-Jones warned that we need to act before this nation goes hungry. That might sound dramatic, but is it really? When you systematically make it impossible for farms to pass between generations, when you create such financial uncertainty that farmers stop investing, when you signal so clearly that the government views agriculture as an obstacle rather than an asset, what's the logical endpoint? It's not more food, it's not stronger rural communities, and it's certainly not greater food security. This is UK Connors, bringing you the political reality that others won't touch. If this made you think, if this made you angry, if this made you understand why those farmers were protesting in Liverpool, then do me a favor. Subscribe to this channel because we are going to keep covering this story as it develops. We are going to hold this government accountable. We are going to give voice to the people being ignored. And we are going to keep asking the questions that need asking until someone in Westminster starts providing answers. Because the future of British farming and British food security is too important to be left to politicians who seem determined to destroy both. Stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll see you in the next one. Retry